Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game 5, where today we are playing a custom replica version of the 2023 Anaheim 2 Supercross. Also talking about the 2023 Anaheim 2 Supercross in real life on the weekend, so spoiler alert, if you haven't already watched the race, I would recommend clicking away from this video so that you can watch it before you get all the spoilers, because I'm going to break down some of the racing action from the Triple Crown, some of my thoughts on, what happened, and, yeah, just kind of the whole synopsis of it all. If you've been with us before, you know what's the dealio, and if you've never been before, then sit back and enjoy the program. So let's jump right into it. 450 class, Triple Crown, round 3 of the season. In my opinion, at least it is round 3, even though they call it round 4. And, boy, we have a very weird dynamic suddenly shaping up. Eli Tomac won the first 2 rounds of the year. Cooper Webb finished second at the first 2 rounds of the year. And Eli Tomac has a huge crash in the third race, is what they're called. And Chase Sexton takes the overall win. Cooper Webb gets 4th, so neither Tomac or Webb get on the podium at Anaheim. And Sexton, who had gone 3-5 to start the year, suddenly takes a win and now is tied with Cooper Webb for second in the championship, 4 points behind Tomac, who still salvaged a 6th on the night because that is the saving grace of the Triple Crown, is that you still walk away with a decent result, even if you barely walk away from a violent crash. But Tomac still gets 6th. And Sexton takes the win ahead of Jason Anderson and Ken Roxon. Kenny gets his first podium of the year. I guess so too does Jason. So, they're not necessarily super far out of it again either. And suddenly we have a completely shifted dynamic in this 450 class. So let's talk about a couple things. I'll start off with Sexton. Sexton was really darn good all day long in Anaheim. If you were not in the stadium for qualifying, you missed a show, to be honest with you, because Sexton was just doing incredible stuff all around the racetrack. The only thing that he was not doing, that only one person was doing all day long up until the third race of the night, was tripling onto this table and tripling over to the next table, stepping off and tripling out of this rhythm section, which Ken Roxon was the only person, allegedly, that did it all day long. I never saw him do it in practice or qualifying, but Justin Brayton, who's up in the press box with us, did tell us that he was doing it. So I guess we'll go with JB's word. Maybe they got Kenny doing it on Race Day Live. I did not see it. I was in, obviously, the press box at Anaheim watching all the action, working for RacerXOnline.com. But, yeah, so Sexton was just incredible. He was pretty much the only guy really getting down into the 57-second lap times, and then he would go lower and lower. He got into the 57s and then went lower, and then lower than that, and lower. And I think he got a 57.4 or so was his P1 qualifying time by the end of it. And I think maybe one other person dipped into the 57s, but he had a couple guys in the 58s. And most notably to me was Eli Tomac was only down to the 59s. And why that was notable to me was because I watched Eli's fast lap that he put down, which was a 59.1, and it looked really good. I mean, blowing up berms, carrying speed through the corners incredibly well. He got the whoops super clean. And it was a 59.1. And I watched a couple sections that Chase put together, but I never saw him do one of his full laps that he did. So I could see where he was doing stuff that was slightly better than Tomac, but then I guess you put it all together, and it was a second and a half faster in qualifying than Tomac. Like, incredible. So, I mean, he carried so much momentum from qualifying into the night show, because when you're putting times down like that, you kind of go into it, I assume at least, as a feeling of you're the guy. And he was. He whole shot the first main event, kind of slowly walked away from Ken Roxon, easily won that. Second race was a little bit more like a reserved race. I felt like everyone kind of started where they finished, I guess, in a sense or form. Sexton started just inside of the top 10 and ended up in 5th. And then I think the only other big mover was Tomac, who was charging forward but couldn't quite get to Jason Anderson for the win in that one by the end of it. And then Sexton goes out and wins the last one. And he had some pressure from Anderson. Well, Anderson did lead at one point, and then Sexton got him and passed him and kind of pulled away from him. And no one was really matching Chase's pace in the third one either, except maybe Eli, but we'll get to that in a second. So, I mean, just a solid day overall. A showing to me that Chase can win these things. I don't want to say easily, but like it looks like some of the old mojo of like, is he going to get it done? Is it not going to happen? Is kind of starting to go away from him a little bit, just because the day that he put together was complete. Like, the second main event was the only blemish, but everything else was perfect. It was great in qualifying. It was great in the first and third race. he did exactly everything he needed to do to win the overall, and he won it. So it's the second career 450 main event victory. He now moves, like I said, to within 4 back of Eli Tomac for the championship lead. And I think he's definitely in this thing. You know, I think after the first couple rounds, it was a little bit like, did you give Eli too much of a wiggle room, giving him, you know, that much of a points gap that early? But now for Chase to go out and get a win and be this close, I think that, you know, Houston is going to be huge. I think that the next few rounds are going to be huge to determine whether he stays close or not, or maybe even takes the championship lead away. But damn, he looked really good in Anaheim. But let's jump from that to the main talking point, really. It's Eli Tomac, who had a huge one doing that. You know, he was tripling onto the table, tripling to the next table, stepping off, tripling out. And he did it clean the first couple laps of the third race. It was the first time all day I'd seen him do it. He may have done it once or twice in qualifying, but you know, I can't watch these guys all do their individual laps over and over, so I didn't see him pull it out in qualifying specifically, but maybe he did. I don't know. Either way, for him to start busting it out consistently in the third race after not doing it in the first 2 ones, maybe not doing it all day long, was gnarly, and he was gaining so much time on Cooper Webb when he would do it that he just like couldn't even almost figure out how to make the pass stick, because he would just suddenly come up like right behind Webb, and Webb would react and shut the door and whatever. And I'm seeing, by the way, way too much stuff online about Cooper Webb being dirty for blocking or holding Eli up. And I don't know, maybe you guys went to the wrong school of racing or something like that, but on what planet are we just like, oh, someone behind me is going faster? Well, here you go. I'll just, you know, pull off to the side of the track and let you go. Like, that doesn't happen. You still have to pass Cooper Webb. And he's one of the craftiest racers in the world. Like, he's going to be a difficult pass no matter how fast you're going. So I don't think Cooper did anything wrong. I think he raced Eli fair, hard, made him work for trying to make him pass, and in the end it didn't work out. So I don't think he did anything wrong. I think it's asinine for the people that are saying that Webb did anything wrong, but I digress. I've seen a couple things about that. Talk about Eli's crash, though. Goes for the triple onto the first table. And our Tom Jurnett has a little video clip from behind of it, so I got a chance to see kind of a little bit, I guess, better angle of what went wrong. And really what went wrong was his rear end started to just slightly slide out going up the face of that jump. So when it caught, it kicked him left, and he went from jumping more or less straight up onto the table to turning left up towards the jump to the table. And so it was after the whoops right here, coming out of this corner as he tripled on. He kind of railed around the outside of the corner and then just jumped left, you know, like jumped right onto the tough blocks on the left side of the track. And from our angle in the press box, like, we're pretty far away in the right field corner over there, but you saw some distance between the ground and Eli Tomac flipping, and that is so rare. You just don't see Eli Tomac's body flipping through the air. He doesn't have big ones, really. You know, everyone goes, oh, 2015 Colorado, but that was so long ago. It was weird to see. It left a shock throughout the press box, and he got up and didn't look like himself for like 5 laps. He got back to the bike quickly, kind of corrected a couple things. I think he was adjusting some levers as he was like rolling around trying to get back into it. And then, I kid you not, was basically just running Frederick Noren's pace, and Noren was in 13th, and Eli was just there, like behind him, like wasn't catching him, wasn't doing anything massively different than Frederick Noren. And Noren's a good rider. I'm not trying to diss Noren, but when you're Eli Tomac and you're battling Anderson and Sexton and Webb for the lead, and then you go back there and you just are not catching Frederick Noren, it raises some eyebrows of whether things are wrong or not. And he says he's all good. He eventually did catch and pass Noren, so he says, like, you know, at the end of the night, Eli said, I'm all good. We're going to heal up and be ready for Houston. But I would be a little skeptical as to whether or not there's maybe a little lingering issue there, maybe shoulder related based on the way that he hit the ground. Maybe he dinged his head a little bit, so he was, yeah, I hate to say it, but maybe he had a little bit of concussion symptoms going on there. Who knows? But at least for now, at least it appears that he's going to be healthy going forward. I do think that this changes the way that he races. I don't think that he's going to be as sharp as he was at the first 2 rounds. I think this maybe knocks him back a little bit just to finally have a big one and see what, you know, a big one feels like again, and see how hard you can hit the ground if things go wrong and stuff. Like, as much as these guys are the best riders in the world, like, they, for the most part, will at least admit that sometimes those big ones do scare you back to reality a little bit. So I don't know that this necessarily means that Tomac's not going to go win Houston or win all the other races after this or whatever, but I think that we see a bit reserved version of Eli going into Houston, which is okay. He still has a championship lead, and if he is healthy, there's no rush. He doesn't have to pull away right now. This is the best early season form he's ever had, and despite getting a 6th at this round, he's almost never led the championship after 3 rounds, and so for him to be here, he's still in a great spot. I'm not worried about him at all. I'm worried about if we go to Houston and things aren't well there either, then you start to go, oh, there's some lingering effects from this crash. But boy, oh boy, was it a big one. The fans' reaction was nuts. The reaction, like I said, for us in the press box was just shock, like stunned that it happened. And kudos to him to get back up and keep chugging, because that was a big one for sure. Just a couple other things. Great to see, like I said, Roxon get on the box for the first time, and he looked really good all day long, in my opinion, as well. Very much like a Chase Sexton vibe out of him, where it seemed like things were just clicking much better for him at this round. He says he's been doing so much testing, putting his feet on the ground and trying to make the Suzuki better, and it's working. 5.43 to start the year. He's also in the mix. Jason Anderson gets a race win and finishes second overall. That was finally the Jason Anderson I think we were expecting to see when he was nearly battling for the podium at the first 2 rounds and then crashed at both of them and ended up in 7th. So good to see him kind of back in form. Maybe he goes into Houston with a chip on his shoulder to win that thing, and suddenly he's right in the championship mix as well. So good stuff from really all those guys. The 450 class, definitely a lot of fireworks, a lot of chaos, and now we got a close championship fight. It's going to be fun to watch for sure. Let's talk 250s a little bit here. Jet Lawrence obviously comes in with a 6-point lead over RJ Hampshire after they went 1-2, 1-2 at the first 2 rounds of the year. Jet winning both, RJ finishing second at both, and Cameron McAdoo was third at both. And then Cameron McAdoo has a huge one in the whoops in qualifying, and if you haven't been following much of the sport of motocross and supercross, the team that McAdoo rides for, Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki, has been through the ringer to start 2023. First of all, he wasn't really expecting to fully race much Supercross. I think it was going to be a bit of the Chance Hyman's program where he was going to race some select rounds, but rider DeFrancesco got hurt right at the tail end of the offseason. And then, obviously, Austin Faulkner went down at the first round of the year, ripped his knee to shreds and all that terrible stuff. We think Jet Reynolds is still dealing with the same kind of like wrist-arm injury that he has been dealing with and has been getting a lot of surgery, and we don't necessarily expect that he's going to be racing Supercross this year either. So you have Jet Reynolds, you have Ryder DeFrancesco, and you have Austin Faulkner all out after 1 round for Pro Circuit Kawasaki. So you have McAdoo riding well, looking good on the West. Things might go well in the East for those guys because they have Seth Hamaker and Joe Shimoda, but then, bam, Thursday comes, Seth Hamaker announces he will miss a lot of the 250 East Championship with a fractured wrist/arm. And then the very next day, we wake up to the news of Joe Shimoda on Friday before Anaheim has broken his collarbone, and he will also miss quite a bit of the 250 East action as well. So now McAdoo was the only remaining start of the season Pro Circuit guy left, and he goes down huge in the whoops and bangs up his arm, his shoulder. He hit his head pretty good. It looked like maybe that was the night done. Grits it out, comes back out, rides the second qualifying session. Doesn't look good. Was dead last in that session, but his time in the first session, I should say, got him right through into the main event. And he went out there, gritted it out. I think he went 8.65 for 6th or something like that. I don't know how he did it. If you look at his arm on social media today, it was gruesome. It was, Popeye the Sailor Man, or maybe some of you guys know that, the guy that eats spinach and his arms grow huge. His left arm basically looked like that, and his right arm looked like a normal human arm. I don't know how the heck he ended up 6th overall, but kudos to him because he salvaged a good night. And it might pay dividends because RJ Hampshire won the first race and then got a terrible start in the second one, then had a huge crash in the second race, did not finish it, and then didn't look himself in the third race and finished 13th in that one, 11th overall for Hampshire on the night. And because of McAdoo gritting it out and getting a 6th, that moved him to second in the championship, 1 point ahead of Hampshire. So championship-wise, Jet Lawrence is kind of running away with this thing, but McAdoo may have just done himself a huge favor, especially because we're heading into a break right now with a couple East rounds before the next West round at Oakland, where if he comes back and he's reasonably healthy and Jet does something that kind of throws his title away, McAdoo might have actually saved his title chances with that ride in Anaheim. So that was crucial. Like I said, Hampshire wins the first race, kind of, implodes after that. Jet Lawrence crashed in the first race right behind Hampshire. It was able to get back to, I believe, third in that one, and then went down in this berm right here on the first lap of the second race and had to claw his way back all the way up to, I think it was sixth that he got to. And then the third race, Jet Lawrence dominated. Whole shot pulled away and easily won it. But because of those first two results not being stellar, it left the door of opportunity wide open for someone else to sneak in and get a win. And the first career 250 win of his career thus far. Levi Kitchen, Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing, got it done. And I'll eat crow a little bit here. I, coming into the season, said I don't believe that Kitchen or Robertson get a win in 2023. I think that we're going to have to see more from them before I fully establish them as guys that can win. But Robertson won the second race, and Kitchen wins the overall main event results on the night. So they proved me wrong in the same night, I guess, if you could say that. But that was awesome for Kitchen. It was really tough to see him get injured in his rookie year of Supercross last year, because I feel like he had so much more that he could have done in a rookie year that would have set him up really well for this year. I don't think that this necessarily is a trend that we'll see moving forward, where suddenly he gets this win and starts winning a bunch. Maybe it does, but I kind of, there's a weird night. He got a fourth, a second, and a second to win the main event, so to speak, and that's not going to happen every time. So it was awesome to see him win. I don't think it continues from here. I think he's a podium guy. I think Robertson, you could say, is also a podium guy, but I still think when the series comes back, so long as they're healthy, you would say Jet, Hampshire, and McAdoo are kind of like the three staple podium dudes. Awesome for Kitchen, though. Lawrence ends up second overall, so his championship leads now to 16 over McAdoo, 17 over Hampshire. And then rounding out the podium was Robertson, who had won that second race, and then got third in the third one. And I think tied Jet on points for the night, but Jet got the tiebreaker with the better last race. So, yeah, wild night all around, 250, 450, up and down, crazy stuff. I'll end it by, of course, talking about Supercross features, because if you don't talk about Hayden Deegan in a YouTube video, you're not going to get all the fans. So, Supercross features, though, it was interesting. Obviously there's a lot of hype around Deegan, but for me as a journalist of the sport, I kind of personally expected it to be closer than a lot of people were giving it credit for. I would say that going in, yes, Deegan was probably on my list to be the favorite. But I think that there's a lot of discredit given to the Rockstar Husky guys of Casey Cochran and Talon Hawkins and EBR's Julian Bomer, and obviously Deegan's teammate Daxton Bennick, who rides with him. Like, those guys are all really good and no slouches whatsoever. And just because Hayden Deegan is as popular as he is doesn't mean that he's going to beat those guys all the time or every time. And I think once he gets to the pro ranks, we'll also, maybe get a few harsh reality checks for him as well. But Deegan was fastest in qualifying on Friday. They had a free practice and a couple qualifying sessions. Deegan was solid there. I think he ended up like a little under a second faster than everybody on Friday. Then Saturday rolls around, and he didn't look to me the same sort of comfort, I guess, as I saw on Friday. Friday, he looked like he was like there to prove a point. Saturday looked a little bit more, I don't know, like just not quite all put together, if that makes sense. He still looked good, but it just looked like he was struggling to find comfort, perhaps, and he also just looked like he was a little bit, I don't know, maybe just not himself, I guess would be the way to put it. But so Julian Bomer qualified fastest in both sessions, and went into the night show looking really solid. And then the very first lap of the Supercross Features main event, while he was in fourth, I believe, he cased this Supercross strip over here really bad. I thought it was spokes that he damaged based on the way that he started to slow down and look at his bike. It turns out that his bars actually had slid backwards. So like in the clamps that hold the bar to the top of the triple clamps and all that stuff like that, it had actually just like spun down. So he could have pulled into the pits and loosened them, had his mechanic change it out, tighten it, and gone back out, but he would have already been way back, and it was a 6-minute race. So he just pulled in and pulled off, which is a bummer because he obviously was maybe the fastest guy all day, and it would have been interesting to see if he could have won that thing. From there, it was Hawkins and Cochran going back and forth, and then eventually Dax and Bennett caught and passed both of them, and Bennett just looked comfortable and in control throughout the entire 6 minute plus a lap main event. So Bennett wins the Futures race. Hayden Deegan went down on the 3rd lap of it in the same spot that Jet Lawrence crashed in the first race for the 250 guys. And Deegan also went off the track on the 1st lap as well when he got pushed off in the rhythm section. So, I'm not panicking at all or anything like that. I'm not saying Deegan sucks or anything like that. But it was, some rookie moments, I would say, out of him, and some things that were out of his control as well. It happens. Like, once you're under the lights, it hits different. And it was a good learning experience, I think, for him to see that, kind of unfold, and for all those guys to battle up front and see it in the stadium as well. I was actually impressed with how good everybody looked. There was quite a bit of crashing out of the Futures guys in the whoops, but everyone looked pretty solid. So yeah, we expected that Deegan might turn pro in Houston this week. I don't know if that's still on the cards. If he didn't dominate and win Futures, I think maybe they hold him back a little bit, but we'll see. Maybe he's still here this weekend in Houston coming up, and we'll see Hayden Deegan turning pro, at least on a Supercross level. He's already raced Pro National, but yeah, that's kind of the scoops. Bennett wins the Futures. Levi Kitchen wins the 250 Supercross class, and Chase Sexton wins the 450 class. Almost was a clean sweep for Star between Futures 250 and 450, but yeah, Eli Tomac went down pretty hard. So that is my synopsis of the Anaheim 2 Triple Crown in real life Monster Energy AMA Supercross Round 3 of their championship. Let me know what you guys have to say about it all and what you thought of each of the races and what your opinions are about my opinions and so on and so forth. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. As always, appreciate you stopping by and watching another video here on Start Your Systems, and I look forward to seeing you guys all in the next one. But my name is Kellen, and I'm out for now.